Okay, Barry Bedbug Bites. Okay. I'm giving you your accolades today, brother. And I know I'll be burning your ass up. Like what you do with a bed bug when you find it, because you got to get rid of that motherfucker. You can't squish it. You can't spread it. You got to throw that shit on some fire. Oh, my life, Well, hello there, love bugs. Hello there, Bellas. If you have not already done so, please remember to like, share to Facebook and or Twitter, subscribe, and visit uptopbeauty.com. Today's looky is a package deal. I am now, for a limited time, a limited amount, selling the JT RZA shade and the TT turban together as a package. The price I'm selling them both for is $40. Now that would exclude the shipping and the taxes, but you can't beat that deal. And if you are not already a part of this book club, please hit the Patreon link below and or the join button here on the YouTube. And for a small monthly fee of $5, you babies, look at that thing. Yes, you can be privy to all the shenanigans before the YouTube gets it, if the YouTube gets it. Now, let's continue talking about the Lost Supreme, the life of a dream girl, Florence Ballard. In reality, the contract was, as Mary Wilson would put it in 2007, atrocious. All the money Motown spent on the Supremes would be subtracted from their royalties. Child, that ain't nothing new. We done heard that a million times, but dig this. The book also talks about how Berry Gordy did a trick of boo-boo on them. Remember when we read, I think it was the Marvin Gaye book, when we found out that them gold records that them artists thought they was having wasn't really gold records, they was just records painted gold. This produces the following conundrum. Did Motown close its books because its million-seller singles were not, in fact, selling a million? That's what they said. Berry Gordy had to be the necessary evil in order to keep his people encouraged. Did Motown close its books because its million-selling singles were not, in fact, selling a million? Or because they were selling a million, but they didn't want to pay out a million records worth of royalty? Or for some other reason? I believe that Berry Gordy did not want to publicly admit that maybe Motown wasn't doing as good as they predicted it would for the long haul. The major problem with the contract the Supreme signed, and with many other record contracts, is that the artists were being charged for expenses over which they had little control. Berry often insisted on very long studio sessions. He wanted the Supreme's record just right. To be sure, he probably improved the quality of the record by doing so, and that likely improved sales of the record. But all the expenses, including the fee for studio musicians, were charged to the artist, not to Gordy or to Motown. In defending these contracts, Berry Gordy has put forward several arguments that hold some water. No other record company develops its artists through an in-house training program to the extent that Motown did. Few record companies kept their artists under contract if they didn't make hits year after year. Now, I get it. With that being said, it sounds like Motown was pretty much like a co-op. Like basically, you throwing all your money into a pot so that everybody could get paid. And I get it. It's basically like paying taxes. You don't know where the hell your money is going to, but you know it's going somewhere to take care of all the necessities in your particular county. Gordy's supporters have also argued that Motown's contracts were no worse than those of many other record companies, at least in the beginning. I would agree. Because I don't know a artist that said that they didn't get carried with their first contract. Not One, except for these new artists, these TikTok artists, these IG artists, these artists like Drake, all the artists who came out in the era of promoting their own music. You can't get me. I'm popping without you. You really just, like basically nowadays, you don't even really need a record label behind you. You could put your own shiz out there on streaming platforms and get the money directly in your pocket now. So you can't pull that stuff on these young people, not no more. While Gordy may have been right about all of the above, the real stingers in the contracts were the provisions giving Motown sole control over its artists, money, and career. If Buttered Popcorn, a cheery, catchy song with a light and fluffy name, had been promoted into a heavyweight hit, Flo, who sang the lead on the song, might have been locked into the role as the group rose to stardom with dramatic effect on her career and on those of the other three. Barney Ellis wanted to put Motown's publicity machine behind Buttered Popcorn. Gordy, who was impressed with Diane's energy and beginning to focus on her rather than on Flo as the potential superstar of the group, wouldn't let Ellis promote it. Now, I didn't know that. Now that's kind of dirty. In terms of Florence Ballard's subsequent career, Buttered Popcorn may represent the tune not taken, the career that never was. Although relatively unknown these days, except to collectors of rare pop discs, this song is a milestone in the history of Flo Ballard and the Supremes. Later, Gordy also chose not to release another Supremes tune that highlighted Flo's skill as a lead singer. Save Me a Star. Of course, the quartet's downsizing into a trio would turn out not to make a difference. The three remaining members of the Supremes had other problems. Their continued failure to move forward killed whatever interest Gordy had in them. The Marvelettes were knocking on the door, and the Vandellas were knocking on the door, Flo said. And the Marvelettes came right in 1 month after the release of Buttered Popcorn and got a smash hit. Please, Mr. Postman, Motown's first #1 pop hit. Rather than stay on the sidelines, Flo joined the Marvelettes, who were much more successful at the time. Officially, Flo was filling in for Wanda Young, who was pregnant and unable to finish her tour with the Marvelettes in 1962. Flo stayed with the Marvelettes for several months. Mary and Diane were so depressed at the group's lack of popularity and the temporary departure of their leader that they didn't even rehearse, much less perform while Flo was away. Hold on. Well, it wasn't like they were sitting there twiddling their thumbs in the time being. Yeah, they were sad that Flo left them temporarily, and that they didn't have a hit. But remember, in Mary Wilson's book, they went round there to one of Mary Wilson's aunt's house and finagled with one of them male singing groups. I forget which group it was. Timmy, if you remember, please put it down below. But y'all, they wasn't sitting there just being quiet. When Flo finally returned to the Supremes in May 1962, the group went back to performing all around Detroit and also touring sporadically outside the Motor City. Meanwhile, Hitsville was living up to its hopes. While the Supremes couldn't get a hit, they showed spunk by harassing Motown producers incessantly. We were still sitting there fussing at the producers, Flo said. We were the first group here, and we haven't got a hit record yet. 1962 and 1963, there were 4 songs written by Robinson with Diane as lead. The songs failed to bust the group out of the no-hit ghetto in which they found themselves. During this same period, Motown was producing hits like Stubborn Kind of Fellow by Marvin Gaye and Playboy by the Marvelettes. In 1962, it produced Beechwood 45789 by the Marvelettes. The One Who Really Loves You, You Beat Me to the Punch, and Two Lovers by Mary Wells and Do You Love Me by The Contours. In 1963, it released You've Really Got a Hold on Me and Mickey's Monkey by The Miracles, Laughing Boy by Mary Wells, Pride and Joy by Marvin Gaye, Fingertips Part 2 by the Little Stevie Wonder, and Love is Like a Heat Wave and Quicksand by Martha and the Vandellas. Heat Wave and Quicksand are excellent examples of Motown's most successful attempts to produce two songs and twice the profit from one, except for some of the words. The songs were almost identical. Ooh, that's called the remix. Damn! So I'm thinking that P. Diddy was the master of the remix, or who else is a master of the remix? Teddy Riley, master of the remix. Who else, y'all, would we consider master of the remix? But I'm thinking that the remix part didn't happen until later on in the 90s, when in actuality, Gordy been doing that. Think about it. When Belle Biv DeVoe put out one album, they were even more successful with the remix album, and Bobby Brown. Diddy had to pay people to use their music. Gordy already owned that music. So if he chose to use that same rhythm twice, he ain't got to pay nobody. And hell, it ain't like we gonna pay attention. Just the words is being twisted around a little bit. Genius. Okay, Berry Bed Bug Bites. Okay. I'm giving you your accolades today, brother. All right. I know I'll be burning your ass up like what you do with a bed bug when you find it, because you got to get rid of that motherfucker. You can't squish it. You can't spray it. You got to throw that shit on some fire. Flo, Diane, and Mary, on the other hand, were being mocked as the no-hit supremes by the crueler spirits among their colleagues. That November, the young women piled into a bus in 5 cars with many other Motown acts to tour much of America as the Motown Revue. And what we call it, the Monococali bus. Arms, the feet, the breath, all that involved in the Monococali bus. And from what I understand, they on that bus having some affairs away from their women's. Okay. The Motown Revues were massive. The 1962 review that Flo and the other Supremes joined, including 45 performers. It was too many people and too many miles, and showed a lack of experience putting all those people out there. But the reviews introduced a lot of Motown acts to a lot of fans. The reviews served other functions, eliminating the acts that couldn't cut it and illuminating the superstars in the group. I can really see that, because some people ain't gonna make it. I look at Berry Bed Bug Bites sideways. Like, why did you specifically choose underprivileged teenagers from the projects? Is it because you knew that you could just offer them the least and they would think of it as the most of an opportunity that they would have? You couldn't put a young teen that's from a middle-class family on that bus and it'd be okay. Because let me tell you, although they Negroes, they're still OSHA. Bling, bling, listen, they got us on a bus with no AC, biggity boo, 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 boo. Them middle-class families been and had a suit against Berry the Gordy. For those performers who were high school dropouts living in housing projects when they joined Motown, for those who'd rarely been beyond the Detroit limits, for those who had been born in the North and had never been in the South, traveling around America, even by bus, was a thrilling yet shocking experience. As for Flo, the Motown Revue took her to the South for the first time and showed her the ugly face of true segregation. All the groups were together on one bus and its trailing cars. Among them, Mary Wells, Smokey Robinson, and the Miracles, 12-year-old Stevie Wonder, and basically just along for the ride, the Supremes. The lifestyle was communal beyond belief. This led naturally to romantic entanglements. Flo and Otis Williams of The Temptations were one such short-lived item. That's it. That's it. What the fuck are we reading this book for if all you going to give me is just this? Where is the meat and potatoes? I need to know. Patti LaBelle, you still alive? I need to know, is the rumors true about Otis Williams? You know he is Scorpio. She a Cancer. I could see them two bonding together. Can you imagine? Ooh, you know them Scorpios don't mind hunching on the first night, okay? And neither do them Cancers, child. Ooh, they probably was in that back seat under the covers, getting to know each other so much better. The rigors of the review had its rewards in the form of audience eager for the groups that had already produced hit records. When the master of ceremony introduced the Marvelettes, the audience, hooked on the group's million seller, Please Mr. Postman, went into hysterics. The Marvelettes' name was prominent on the marquee. By contrast, the Supremes' name was often unlisted altogether. The Supremes were frequently the first group or among the first groups to perform, giving them the status of a warm-up act rather than a featured act. Those preferred acts were introduced later, after the warm-up groups had prepped the audience. Even under the stress of endless days on a bus and the ego-reducing effects of performing for people who had never heard of her, Flo's confidence remained compared with the Marvelettes. We were a better group, Flo said. We had better harmony. She argued that the Marvelettes couldn't sing, not really. She dismissed the Contours as a screaming act. They could sing, but they needed material, and I don't think too many producers wanted to write for them. Remember when we read the Sugar Ray book? I'm sorry, y'all, but we got to do flashbacks, right? And remember when the Contours came in to audition for Sugar Ray and Berry Gordy? Sugar Ray and Berry Gordy were terrified in their seats like, are these niggas going to kill us when they get finished hollering and jumping all over the place? Oh, the scene was hilarious. They could sing, but they needed material. And I don't think too many producers wanted to write for them. I don't know what happened to them. One of them became a junkie. Some of them went into factories to work and just gave it up. Flo never stopped criticizing the other groups, although never to their face. It kind of puts it like Flo would talk shit about people behind their back, but let's not get it effed up. For every book I've read that mentions Flo ain't never had a problem with telling a mother hunchy to their face what she thought. Now, yeah, she might have got a little drunk along the way, but she wasn't no fraidy cat before the alcohol, because, you know, some people need that liquid courage. Flo wasn't that person. If she ain't like you, she's going to tell you that, okay? Maybe she was just playing nice at that point, because you can't tell me that Flo wasn't like, I think you not busy right now. You could kiss my ass since you ain't busy. But she was also realistic enough to admit that the Supremes badly needed a hit. Eddie Holland was best known for his lyrics. His younger brother, Brian, for his engineering and production skills, and Lamont Dozier for his melodies. The Supremes' first single with HDH, When the Love Light Starts Shining Through His Eyes, climbed into the top 40, peaking at 23 on the Billboard charts in fall of 1963. In the spring of 1964, however, HDH wrote Where Did Our Love Go? When they brought it to Gordy, he suggested it for the Marvelettes, but they turned it down. It was then offered to the Supremes. Their unanimous reaction: forget it. Flo remembered, we said, huh? We don't like this record. It don't sound like nothing to us. We wanted something like Please Mr. Postman, which they were well aware had reached #1 almost instantly in 1961. Where Did Our Love Go was the best and earliest example of what came to be the Motown sound, a sound that stemmed from Gordy's ancestral roots in Africa and Georgia, and his life in Detroit. Child, I'm making too much noise for Lou, so he done took his little fish and ran down to the other end of the couch. Motown producers argued over which Supreme should have the lead on this one. Few people in Detroit or at Motown at the time believed Diane to be a very good singer. When she had started working as a secretary at Motown, other employees called her a secretary who thought she could sing. Yikes. Ooh, so disrespectful. Despite these assessments, the producer decided on Diane to sing lead on Where Did Our Love Go?
Gordy.